Ah, yay. I'm so glad that y'all are here.
Okay.
So we have invited
Okay,
people.
I gotta say hi to Erica. Hi, Erica.
Hey, I was going to call you after this.
I'll try to call you.
Oh, cool.
All right,
Yes.
I'm going back to being invisible.
Yes.
So I'm going to, so it's going to be really straightforward. We're just going to be asking the questions that I sent you beforehand. And we will have folks on as attendees. And so I'm going to encourage them to put their questions in the Q&A section. That way you all can see them as well, and people can direct specific questions to you, and you can loop those into your responses, or, we're just going to go with the flow.
Okay, now I do have a question.
Yes.
I saw you said your colleagues or coworkers, but I'm not exactly sure where you work.
Yes, I work at Barnes Jewish Hospital.
Okay.
So Harlan is on this call. He's my supervising manager.
I was thinking that because when I saw Julia emailed me through our little Airtable setup that Harlan was interested in helping with North County, and I was like, yay, that's why I was going to call you.
Yes.
So I'm going to what this group was. So this is Barnes Jewish workers, or
okay. So the immediate, and I think Harlan sent it to a few people as well. So yeah.
Great. Well, I appreciate that.
We want to spread the good word, because I'm actually, let me broadcast, because we probably have people who are waiting. We're in practice mode currently. So I'm going to go on and broadcast so that our attendees can come on in. But I'm just so inspired and grateful to be a part of the work that you all are doing. And I've never been a part of it, I think, on this grassroots kind of like level. So just from an operational standpoint, thank y'all, like, for real. For real. So a couple of attendees. We have Elvadine, he's in the room. Sarah, she's my colleague. They're both my colleagues. Michael Berg as well. So if you all want to introduce yourselves in the chat, thank you all for being here. And then for the attendees, I want you to know that if you have specific questions as we're talking to Julia and Erica, feel free to use the Q&A option. And direct specific questions to them, and they have access to these questions as well. Okay. All right. So let's dive on in. You can kind of just take turns speaking back and forth. So for the first question, Julia, if you want to start, and then for the next question, Erica, you can lead with your answer. And we'll just kind of go back and forth like that. So I want to tell us about yourselves. Outside of your most recent work, what's your day-to-day? What do you do?
I'll let you start, Julia.
I am 27. I've lived in St. Louis for about, I guess this is like my 9th year here, which is cool. But I grew up in Lubbock, Texas, which is like totally not an exciting place. And I'm Taiwanese, which is like a really important part of my identity, and sort of related to how I think about community. And my day-to-day, I mean, prior to this was not super different necessarily. I am the founder of this network here, Solidarity Economy St. Louis. I intentionally wore my t-shirt today. Yeah, and that's how I know Erica. It's a kind of the foundation for a lot of the relationships that allowed for the current STL Mutual Aid effort to be possible. So it's been really beautiful because I've been involved in a lot of different types of organizing spaces and connected to lots of different people with so many different talents and skills over the years. And this is the first time I felt like all of them have sort of merged together into one to like really, to really do something amazing. So yeah, and I guess that's all you really need to know about me for now, but I can talk more later.
Cool, thank you, Julia. Erica?
Well, first I will say that Julia is amazing. She is super humble and downplaying her amazingness, but that's okay. You will learn and glean from the conversation about how awesome she really is. But I'm Erica Williams, and I'm a wife and mother of 5. I have 2 grown and gone children and 3 high schoolers. So we are doing that whole pandemic trauma learning. I mean homeschooling. Sorry about that. 2 in one high school, 1 in a kind of a gifted high school. But yes, it's been fascinating. I founded a Red Circle 3 years ago to address disparities in the North St. Louis County region around race and economic opportunities. And so, what we began to do is, after our research, and I say we, meaning me and my board and cohorts and other good folks, is we began to research, what was in North County, what was missing from North County, where were some of the disparities, and how we can address them with what we knew and what we had. So, we began to look at issues like education justice, healthy food access, um, access to voting and voter education and policy work, and access to the arts and those types of things. And so we began to put together different programs and projects around, what that would look like for a healthy community, knowing that the tenet of the disparity was racism. And so all blood is red. And so that's where the term a red circle came from, because of the interconnection of, systems that create a healthy community. But when COVID-19 really took hold and we began to have to do quarantine and close schools and things of that nature, we had already had like a bunch of different physical supplies that we were going to use for things like mom and baby dinners, healthy mom and baby dinners, for homeless work and things of that nature. So we started sharing those with the people. And then eventually we were like, we need to do more. And so, because I'm a member of Solidarity Economy, we were talking about how we can come together to serve the community. And so that's how STL Mutual Aid and my role in this work kind of came to be. But before a Red Circle, I was a paralegal, have an MBA, working on business law, business transactional type stuff, evicting people, not my forte. I know. So I was like, yeah, I can't do this. I can't do this. I'm giving them my brain, my mind, my geniusness for their work, when my community is, struggling and suffering. So I left my law firm gig, and in this 3rd year now, I am actually getting a paycheck. Yay. So I can pay myself to serve my community, which is awesome.
Yes.
But that's pretty much me in a nutshell. In fact, we're celebrating our daughter's 25th birthday tomorrow virtually. Surprise birthday party. So yeah, she's been kind of bumming, but we're going to make it fun. We're going to make it fun. I'm going to have the wine flowing.
Yes. Happy birthday to her.
Thank you.
And such a wealth of experience and knowledge and compassion between the two of you. And so, Erica, you ended talking a little bit about mutual aid and the fact that you and Julia have already connected in this work prior to COVID-19, but especially now. And so for those who are unfamiliar, tell us a little bit more about what mutual aid is and how it works. And in that, you can touch maybe on some of the advantages to the approach.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'll let you start, Julia.
So I've been describing this in different ways to different people, but this morning I was kind of just like, I guess I just woke up and I was thinking about the very simplest possible way to explain this, which is like, basically mutual aid has two kind of key, I guess, like perspectives. One is that the government or the system or whatever you want to call it, the society that we live in currently, like, ain't gonna take care of us. It's not gonna take care of us. It's not taking care of us. It hasn't ever really taken care of us. And then the second thing is that we have the ability to take care of each other. So I think for anybody who believes those two things, that like, one, the current society that we live in is like not working, and it's like actually actively failing and oppressing a lot of people, and was built to do so. And two, that actually the hopeful side of that is that we as people still have that innate capacity and that innate ability and creativity, and sort of we don't have to wait on whatever institution or whatever government or whoever. We don't have to wait for somebody else to tell us what to do and to like do the right thing for the right people right now. So I think really that's the most basic way I can explain what mutual aid is. And so with that, you know, when we first started, we just put out like a link to, you know, a really simple form that is still up now that just says, you know, what can you offer and what can you provide? Like, what can you offer and what do you need? And at that time, like we had we had some people, we had a lot of folks who had already kind of offered specific skill sets, but we weren't really connected to all of you or to anybody yet. And so what I've been telling people is like, well, are you providing all of this stuff for everybody? And I was like, we're providing whatever you're offering. Like if people are out there and they're willing to offer something, even if it's just, I mean, you know, going to the grocery store and picking up a few extra things like might not seem like a lot, but it has meant a lot to a lot of people, you know. And for somebody who really is like, does not know how they're going to get the next meal, is scared to leave the house, like is potential, you know, putting themselves at risk by going to the grocery store, having somebody else, especially a stranger, you know, just pop up and say, hey, I left some extra things on your doorstep, is actually like a real sign of like care that goes beyond, you know, just convenience or meeting somebody's immediate tangible need. It's also sort of like core to how we are operating. And then, I mean, similarly to that, it's like we are real people, you know, with like, and we're all doing this on our own time in various ways. And so like, we're not coming at this from a mindset of like, we're an organization or whatever, we followed standard protocol. And you know what I mean? Like, we're just a bunch of people who are like trying to help. And so I think that kind of component is really important because it sort of deprofessionalizes what we do. And that like our goal is not to set up a lot of these like barriers between like people giving support and people receiving support, or sort of being like, well, you're, you know, like it's like a charity thing where like I'm helping you, but actually that like we're all operating on the same level. We're all going through some things right now. And some of us have more capacity to support, and we're going to do that, you know, because it's what we are sort of need to do right now. So I think those are really important. It's just like kind of the informal nature of it, and that's actually like what gives it a lot of strength, is that it feels more like somebody who, you know, is a friend or is a neighbor who's helping you, rather than sort of an agency or something where you have to prove to people like why you deserve support. And we're not trying to recreate those kinds of relationships. So
I was going to jump in also and say something to that effect. There's a very nice kind of a trust factor that's put in place with this. You know, we don't go through screening with, tell me why you need help. How has COVID-19 impacted you? It's like if you're calling a hotline, if you're filling out a form, there's something going on. And so if you need the help and we have the help, we're going to give it. It's been super cool because even though she says deprofessionalized, it's been run very professionally. There's been a database and people working the hotline and volunteers managing things. It's so cool. So I'm one of those people. I can learn computer stuff so long as, you know, I have the tools, but it doesn't just come to me naturally. So this past Saturday morning, I'm in the database trying to figure out how to do like my North County view. And the way the Airtable database works is kind of like Google Forms, where if someone is in it, someone else can see kind of what they're doing as they're doing it. I'm sure Julia saw that I was going in and out and back and forth. And she was like, she texted me, do you need some help with the database? I was like, yes, can you tell? And so she helped me get it right together, which allowed me to then kind of like, we have about 20 so people right now on the North County view because the Red Circle focuses on North County. So we just shifted our attention and focus to the regional community betterment, to the immediate needs betterment, still in North County. And so I wanted to see who the people were so I can get my volunteers to call them. But it was like, you know, right now the list is like 300 people because it's regional and it's very organized. You can see that it's 300 people. It's not anything that's haphazard. And what the database allows us to do is, track when calls are made, track when the need is met, track if there's other needs such as finances. And the other trust factor in the financial piece is if people say that they are in need of help in that matter, we don't show us, pay stubs and all this kind of bureaucracy that if you're going through something, that's the last thing you want to have to deal with. You are not going to ask, for the most part, people aren't asking for help to scam anyone because no one wants to have to ask for help. So the fact that they're asking for help proves that there's something going on. And so
Right.
we've been getting, and I say we because I'm part of the network, but the donations have been allowing people to, receive support for rent for this month and different things. We've been doing creative things like this cash app fundraisers for people. And we just, put the need out there and people have been responding. I was at someone's house yesterday picking up 2 boxes of toilet paper packages. So I now have that to add to the list when people, type in that they need groceries or hygiene products or cleaning supplies, toilet paper. I have it because the need is there and the need is real, and they trust the people donating, trust that we are going to do the right thing by giving it to where it needs to go.
Yeah,
So that's been really cool.
That what you touched on about like the difficulty of asking for help is really important. And that's something that we try and really like, like rather than making somebody feel like we are screening them or something, like it's actually really important that we're like, hey, like, thank you for asking for help, because that's a really hard thing to do, especially right now when so much is going on. And similarly, I think giving people the option of providing help has actually been a huge, like we've just gotten such positive feedback on it because people are feeling like, oh, well, I feel so powerless right now. And like, I feel like all I can do is like shut myself in my house and be alone and be separated from everyone. And actually what we're providing is like an invitation for you to do the opposite of that, which is like still stay in your house, but like, but still be connected to so many people. And in fact, like people that you would never have been connected to otherwise. And so I think that aspect of like building the relationships is really important. And then from like, again, breaking down those barriers between like who is needing and who is offering, or who is needing and who is offering support. And then the other really important aspect that Erica is like the perfect embodiment of is the sort of neighborhood or like regional approach to it. And so, yes, at the end of the day, like we're accepting, like we're getting requests from really random places, like places out in Illinois and like places like 100 miles away from here. But I mean, we are really focused on the St. Louis region. And so what we've done is trying to focus on creating kind of neighborhood clusters or pods where people who are all in the same area are also connected to each other on a more intimate way. And so it's not kind of super centralized where like we are, or the, the STL mutual aid coordination team is responsible for, like just sort of tracking or keeping track with everybody. Like we really believe that like people like Erica or people who live in a neighborhood that they're working in and are familiar with it, they understand, the sort of unique circumstances of that neighborhood. They already know people there. Like they are the most equipped and the most often like the most engaged and excited to actually be working with somebody else in their neighborhood. And so it doesn't make sense for like me, I live on the South Side in South City. Like I don't need to be coordinating every single day with somebody who's out in the county. But if I have a relationship with Erica and she is coordinating with those people, then we can all kind of like basically plug in wherever needed to troubleshoot or to provide extra support or whatever. Or if like, most of the time, like Erica's got it. Like I just be like, hey, Erica, will you reach out to this person? And she'd be like, I got it. And then she just takes care of it. And that's like also like a really great feeling of just like trust.
I was definitely going to comment on, as someone who's volunteering specifically for the mutual aid hotline and has been a part of these conversations, I really appreciate how you've how you've emphasized the importance of making sure that folks are respected, that folks know that even in the midst of needing, which is something we all, because you all cover a scope of need, right? It's not just financial or supply or grocery. You're saying, do you need emotional support, right? Do you need community? So really touching on a range of things that could apply to each and every one of us. And so positing people, everyone is as someone who needs something, but also has something to offer. For me, in talking to these community members that we're reaching through the hotline has been like a game changer. And then the culture of trust, because going in, I was just like, will people be okay with giving me this information? You know what I'm saying? But just the culture of trust and the spirit in which this mutual aid is moving forward, it's really connected with folks across the spectrum of both need and privilege. So really, it's amazing. Thank you all.
I want to especially shout out like the fact that we've been able to do bilingual services, because I think that that's been really amazing, and the response we've gotten has been super amazing. And so from the very, very, very beginning, like one of the first people, Amanda Heo, the person who came to our retreat, Erica, she was like part of our coordinating team, and she was already involved in a lot of like advocacy, like kind of advocacy for undocumented people, and just like a lot of different part of a lot of different Spanish speaking communities. And so from the beginning, we were like already like offering bilingual support, and everything that we had was in English and Spanish. The financial requests were all in English and Spanish. Now we're like, we have created a system to accept a lot of Spanish hotline callers. And so just the ability to sort of create space for that team to emerge, and for people to sort of recognize that like, yes, like some of the people who are going to be affected most by this are people who don't have social security numbers, or who aren't going to receive a stimulus check, or who aren't going to qualify for so many of the different things out there, or even if they do qualify, are not going to have access to it because of language barriers. So I think just another example of like how how people have really just jumped in and to like provide systems of support for whoever their communities are.
Absolutely. One of the first families that we helped in Florissant was a Spanish-speaking family, and we used a translator and Google Translate to get his needs met, through groceries and through financial support. And he was so grateful, and we were able to converse. I took high school Spanish, but that was long. So we've been able to converse, to actually get his needs met. And he told me he wouldn't qualify for unemployment, even though he was laid off because of COVID-19. So being able, like I said, to bypass all of that bureaucracy and still meet needs from the community standpoint without having to rely upon the government has just been huge.
Indeed. And I really think, also speaking to the diversity in the folks that you have giving voice to this movement, right? Because even as someone who's a part, there have been so many perspectives that I've been introduced to, things that, within the silo of my own experience, I may not have otherwise considered. And so the fact that you brought a diverse collective of folks together who can raise awareness around who isn't in the room, I think is so, so valuable and important. And so you all talked a little bit on this, but I still want to ask the question in case there's anything that you want to add. But are there any common themes or threads or recurrences that you've noticed at all? I won't put a specific label to that, but have there been any common themes or threads that you've noticed in this work?
One of the first thing that comes to mind, something that made me really happy, I was checking in with Adriana yesterday, and she's she lives like my neighbor and my friend, and lives right around the corner from me, and she's been coordinating with like a lot of the families in the Dutchtown area, which also has like a really high concentration of Spanish speaking families as well. But one thing she said to me was like, there's some people who came to us in the beginning and we helped them with some of their immediate needs. Like there was a neighbor who had tested positive, and was quarantining himself for a couple of weeks. And so we were able to get him groceries within like a day or two and help with some other things. And there was like another guy who had also kind of called in, and then after about a week of working with these folks, they basically went from I need like support to actually I think I'm good. I would like to focus on offering support. And so it's something like that was really beautiful for me to just kind of think about, of like, you know, that people are, because of their situations and because of like the instability right now, like you could have had a really great paying job and have just got laid off and now you're in a totally different situation. Or, you know, there's just so many things that are changing for people. And it's really nice to be able to recognize people like where they are in whatever moment they're in when they're needing support, but also to like build a relationship with them so that you can actually see them go through different phases in this moment of being like, you know, I actually noticed like being connected to this network is giving me perspective on like other people in my immediate neighborhood who are maybe even like less stable, in a less stable situation than I am right now. And like actually I'm like growing as a person, you know, through the process of being able to like receive support and then realizing that actually like I have things to offer. And I've seen similar threads like that and just people's responses to the thing, or, you know, maybe they come in thinking initially like, oh, I'm going to ask for some support. And then as they're reading the different categories, they're like, oh, maybe I don't have money, but I do, you know, I'm a counselor, or I have, you know, there's some people who are like seamstresses or makers. They're like, I can't give money, but I can make masks in my house, you know, like whatever it is. It's just one of those moments where there's so many things that people are needing right now that like whatever you have as a person like is going to be of use, you know, and it's going to be able to like connect you to other people. So I think just being able to like really expand what people's kind of definition of like, oh, this is like what I do as a volunteer, or this is what I do. Whatever, it's like there's so much creativity and like there's just like so many possibilities for how people can plug in and be helpful.
Yeah, definitely. I was gonna say one thing that I've noticed, and you know, when I do the drop-offs or call people and get the information about what it is that they need specifically, I've been hearing a lot of this could have been a lot worse, but because you guys are doing what you're doing, this, you know, helps me or gives me hope or helps to eliminate some of the fear, because, you know, once people are quarantined, those are the people also who might have been taking care of them. And so, you know, that changed a whole different dynamic for people. But and people's situations, like Julia said, changed so instantly. I mean, one day, you know, this guy had income and he could take care of his family. They had a pretty nice house in Florissant. So you don't ever want to, you know, stereotype someone who needs help, who asks for help. But one of the, like I said, the common themes that I've been seeing is that the help that we're giving, the support that we're giving, just calling people and checking on them gives them hope and helps to reduce fear.
Yeah. And that reminds me of a conversation I had with you, Jaquie, the other day, where you were saying like, and it would be nice for you to share your perspective as somebody who's on the hotline and talking to people like most directly, you know, what those conversations have been like or what stuck out to you from them.
Being on this hotline has really given me a refreshed and renewed perspective on what it means to just be present and be there. A gentleman called in and was expressing his need, and in that just started talking about some of the emotional toll, and he found himself like consistently apologizing for sharing. And I was just like, no, you know, like this is a space where you can do that. Yeah, we're here to find out what tangible needs you have at this time, but this is also a space where you can just express and unload for a little bit. And so in doing that, at the end of the call, he was just like, no one's ever just been okay with me talking, you know, and it wasn't that I was offering him unsolicited advice, but really just being in community with him at a time where he couldn't get to his neighbors. And so it's just being there being present, and even in that conversation saying, you know, this is a grassroots run effort, and so I want to take your information to plug you into different resources that exist. You're not going to end this call with money in your Cash App account necessarily, but you know, but yeah, just creating the space. And a lot of folks, to you all's point, have just been saying, just thank you for even thinking about creating a space like this.
Yeah, it's really important too. Like the fact that people are limited in their movements and stuff has made a lot of people think about like, who is your immediate support system? And you know, for people who have like family here or who have some other community to lean on, like it's really obvious that those folks are being better taken care of, because it's like you already have a network of people that you're connected to, whether it's through your job or through your school or through your church or your family. And something I've noticed is that like we've reached quite a number of people who have said to us, like, I don't have any family here. Like, I don't have like a support system or a support community here. And that's one reason why this is so important for them, because it's like, we can't assume that everybody has something to lean on, you know? And especially because of the way society is set up, or people who are more transient or maybe not as rooted in a particular area, like they really have like completely fallen through the cracks of like any other, you know, very marginal level of support that might have been out there. So that's something that also is like very touching to me, is like when people say like, you know, this is really means a lot, because like I don't have other community right now, you know.
Thank you. And so speaking of community, what, and you all touched on this a little bit, but I'll ask the question so that you can expand if you want to. What has the community response been like to this work that you're doing? And you can even touch on ways that it's grown from beginning to where it's at right now.
So for me, it definitely grew from what I was thinking. At the beginning, you know, when I say we, a Red Circle was going to partner with Jama Birth Village in Ferguson to host monthly dinners for moms who are either pregnant or just had children, on topics such as eating healthy while pregnant, eating healthy on a budget, drinking enough water for nursing, and things of that nature. And so we had like a year supply of diapers for this particular project in our storage unit. And then once, you know, quarantine set in and we had to start canceling things, we realized, okay, we're going to have a lot of diapers. So where can we get these to, so that if families need diapers, they can get to them? And so we put some diapers at St. Peter's Church in Ferguson, where the St. Louis Crisis Nursery is, so that when people call them, they can get diapers. And then we also got some diapers to a group that was doing a breakfast thing in the city at the Polish Heritage Center. And then we also were going to do a homeless dinner, because we like to do 2 service projects a year, one at St. Vincent Home for Children, where you came last year for Thanksgiving, and then one for the homeless in March. And so we had all these kits of like backpacks filled with razors and hygiene products and toiletries. And since that dinner got canceled, we were like, well, we got to have somewhere we can give these hygiene kits to still. And so when Julia mentioned doing the STL mutual aid, which I'm not sure if that is what it was called at first, but she was like, well, we can do that. And I said, well, you can list me for diapers. And then I started getting more requests for other stuff. And I'm like, okay, I can call these people. Someone needed groceries. So when I was buying my groceries, I bought extra groceries. Someone else needed groceries. I'm like, well, I'll just buy more groceries. And now we have groceries and diapers. And then someone else said they needed, oh, so then this one group, they work in the Riverview Garden School District, the Little Bit Foundation. And they were trying to set up families with groceries through like Instacart and stuff like that, but that was getting behind. And you know, everyone wants to do Instacart, and so it was like a week's worth of wait time. But they also had families that needed hygiene products. Well, they couldn't do that, so they called us. And so I had 3 different volunteers. I mean, the collection of hygiene products we took to this hotel for this family was huge. Laundry soap, shower wash, all that kind of stuff. And so they'll be set for at least the next couple of months. But, that's kind of, it just grew. People began to hear what we were doing. And St. Louis and St. Louis County especially, we have this tendency to just kind of want to do our thing and work in our space. But you soon realize that we're much better when we work together. I don't want to say better together because I don't care for that. But we are much better when we work together. And so, when people would text me, I would say, go through the mutual aid link. Go through the mutual aid link. That way everything stays centralized. And you can actually begin to track where things are happening and what's happening and how people are impacted, because that inspires others, not just for reporting and funding, which I need to do for funder folks, but, just to show that we are actually making a difference. And when you think about, the bigger picture of this, it's not just groceries, but families that are stressed anyway tend to react differently to stress when there's like abuse in the home or things of that nature. And so anything that we can do to mitigate the chance of children, being harmed or abused, or families going into other more, harmful behaviors, drinking and things of that nature. If groceries will, help with that, then that's what we want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super real. I think, similarly, the thing that has stuck out to me the most is just sort of going back to what Jacque was saying earlier, just like how much of a grassroots like leadership there has been all across the board. And I think it's like, because again, it's like no one person or even a small collection, like even if we had a team of 10 people who were running this and like really, were on top of their game or whatever, like I truly believe that like a staffed organization of like 10 people would not be nearly as effective as the very decentralized team of like over 100 people that we have who are working at various levels on this. And so being able to sort of like from the beginning, like for me, like learning that lesson of being like, okay, you can't take everything on like as a person, and like it's really important to balance like being able to do what you can and giving yourself space. And so like letting people, or just sort of like being really understanding with people of like, okay, yeah, like I don't have the capacity to do this right now. It's like, that's great. Like that's not a problem at all. And like everybody should still have their own boundaries and their own space within all of this. And that doesn't make you like less valuable to sort of what we're doing. And so I think just establishing that early on has basically like allowed for us to exponentially expand the number of people who are working on this in different ways. Like we have like a data and tech team, we have the Spanish translation team. All of these are people who are like organizing themselves, you know what I mean? Like they're not waiting again for permission from anybody. They're doing what they can, and when they need help, they ask for help, and there's like the hotline team is like 50 people in it. It's like we have like the training volunteers, like all this stuff. We have a resource community resource team that has like specifically developed this directory for like easily searching and like navigating all the different resources that are out there, so that even whenever we can't provide something, we can like give people an informed answer of where to go and like update that database. What else? I mean, there's like each neighborhood that is like forming, there's like North County and what Red Circle is doing. There's like the Dutchtown team that I'm in is like really active and sort of getting out and actually helping our neighbors. And so on all of those different levels, from like the neighborhood level to like whatever particular service is doing, there's St. Louis Quarantine Support, which is like specifically just focusing on the food and grocery delivery. Like everybody just gets in where they fit in, and I think that being able to really encourage that level of like autonomy and also like coordination, where it's like, it doesn't matter that I have a say in every single thing that you do. Like what matters is that like we trust each other and have we can communicate with each other about whatever's going on. And so we can sort of figure it out that way. And that has really allowed us to respond so much more quickly, grow a lot more quickly, and just do everything that we do like more effectively without putting too much pressure on like one person or one piece of the system. So that's been the most, I guess, like inspiring thing for me, or the most exciting aspect of it, is just giving people a completely different understanding of like how things can get done, and like really like what it looks like to work in a collective environment that is not super top down or hierarchical.
I'd like to chime in here and say that, you know, we spoke about the trust, that the culture of trust that's being created between this collective or amongst this collective and the community members. But I think that spills over from the trust had in the people that have been brought together to do this organizing work. I recall a specific conversation we were having in one of our meetings where, you know, it seemed like everybody was kind of on board with an initiative we were going to roll forward with. And then someone was just like, this doesn't sit well with me. And taking time to honor those feelings. And it really brought up some key points that transformed the approach we were taking. I think it was around funding and how we liberate the resources we brought in. And so, yeah, goes back to the importance of having the represented at the table to weigh in on those conversations. And so for our attendees, I posted a couple of links in the chat. One is stlresponse.org. That's the kind of the umbrella website that's been pulling in all the different resources and kind of consolidating them into one place. And in that, on that website, there's a heading and there's a mutual aid link. I've clicked that and put the link to it in the chat as well. And this is where you can access the mutual aid forms that they were referencing, as well as like the financial solidarity forms and ways that you can give. But we'll touch on that towards the end of our time together and have them talk a little bit about ways that you can reach out and specifically contribute to the work that they're doing. And so now, before we go there, I want to open up the floor, because you all have, I'm just inspired listening to you. And so I want to open up the floor to any attendees who have some questions for Julia or Erica. And you're welcome to put them in the Q&A chat, or if you just raise your hand, I can give you access to talk and ask your question yourself. All right, Sophia, I see your hand and I'm going to unmute you now. All right.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Mm-hmm.
I was having audio issues earlier, so I wanted to make sure. Erica and Julia and Jaquie, thank you so much for being on the chat. I have a question about how you all see your services continuing after we flatten the curve of COVID-19, because we know that people will still be in much need and support of all of the wonderful resources that you all are offering in the moment. And Erica, I know you do a lot already with Red Circle. Julia, this is my first time hearing you speak, and I've learned a lot about you from Jaquie with STL Response. But just to reiterate the question, I'm just curious to see how this will spearhead into other initiatives after we see COVID kind of dying out, if you will. Thank you.
Yeah.
So for me, oh, sorry.
There you go.
I was gonna say for me, this is definitely something I've been thinking about in terms of a Red Circle's capacity to continue this work. One of the ways that, you know, has made it possible is the link that people can sign up for, and me receiving the names and contact information and details via the database. You know, people have asked me, how do you find out who needs help? How do you find, and I'm like, I don't have to. That's one of the, you know, best things that this has been able to bring to us, is we get the information and then we run with it. We get it and then we take care of it. So if I had to then create ways to put the word out, to find the people, I would probably need like a lot more staff and funding and things of that nature, logistics to continue this work. And so that will all kind of depend upon the entire like mutual aid piece of it, which is what I'll let Julia speak to.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's something that has really informed like how we've built things up, because we want this to be a long-term thing. So, I mean, really, if you think about it, like this, all of this should have existed before, the pandemic. And people who are needing all of these things, like it's not that people are just suddenly needing all of these things. Like people already needed them. People already needed financial support. People already needed help with food access. It's just that this particular pandemic is making it more obvious to the rest of society. And so I think with that understanding, from the beginning, I was like, I don't exactly know how long this is going to play out or how bad this particular situation is going to be. What I do kind of know is that like it's going to get worse for a while. And even beyond this, there are still going to be other situations. Like climate change is still a thing. Unfortunately, there's just a lot of situations happening in the world right now that have not been solved. And so, I'm very much of the, and even one of the person who built our database for us, like from the beginning was like, so yeah, we're doing this forever, right? So we pretty much like, I think a lot of us are really in it for the long haul. And, folks like Erica and myself and Jaquie, actually, like we were already in it for the long haul before all of this. And, again, like I said, the reason I know Erica and many of the people that have been involved with this is through forming Solidarity Economy St. Louis. And our original intention as a network, or sort of our purpose, is to build and to completely reimagine like what our local economy looks like, and finding new creative ways to like build cooperatives or different structures that like help meet people's everyday needs. So I very much see a connection to the work that we're doing now with that like long-term vision of just like, well, if we, if you help people realize that like actually they don't need to rely on these external systems in order to meet some of these needs, then that opens up so many doors and so many possibilities for like, well, if that's the case, then like, why am I, like doing this thing or doing this other thing, or why am I shopping at Walmart or like whatever, there's just so many, I think like really creative possibilities coming out of this, of like people not just meeting the everyday or sort of the immediate need that's getting provided through mutual aid, but like getting them to think differently about the systems that we live in and how to change them. And I think the last thing I'll say on this is like one of the best examples of mutual aid that's ever existed in American history is the Black Panther Party. And so people a lot of times talk about the free breakfast programs that they did. Well, that's a perfect example of mutual aid. Like they started these breakfast programs with the immediate goal of feeding families in the neighborhood, and the sort of then next goal of getting people to like think differently about like why they weren't receiving food, and what are the different like systems in place that are keeping them from accessing basic human rights. So I think I like to kind of just put that out there as an example of something that like, yeah, like we are following in that same, like trajectory of history.
Thank you so much for making that historical connection, because I hadn't even, thought about this work within the context of how it aligns with ways grassroots organizations have responded and operated in this country over time and even beyond this country. So thank you so much. Are
Absolutely.
there any? Yeah.
I was gonna say that's a very, very important distinction and piece of history to know about, because the media and the history books will paint a very different picture of the Black Panther Party. One of the things that we said when I started A Red Circle was we would meet short-term needs for like, a group of people. So for example, one thing we did was we would do things like hats and gloves drives. So a lot of times people will give kids coats, but the parents still need the hats and gloves. So we would do hats and gloves drives, but then we want to look at what was it in this particular region that kept parents from being able to afford coats. What was it like? We can help you learn how to farm and grow food and things of that nature. but what is it in this region that keeps healthy food away from North County? And so very similar to how we operate at A Red Circle.
Awesome, awesome.
Well, I've been waiting patiently to jump in. I am
Jump in, Harlan.
totally in love. Listen, I've got a whole page of notes, but I'll hold on to my notes. I really want you guys to talk a little bit about the technical part, about how to get engaged. Can you talk a little bit about the questions that you guys are asking about need and resources that people have?
Mhm.
I love the idea that you all are reminding us how to be neighbors. That is a truly enduring concept. It's been around, but we just have moved away from that. And so they say that there's nothing that unites a community faster than a common enemy. And so what we are doing is we are now relearning how to come together and just do what just needs to be done. So tell us a little bit about, I saw this wonderful set of questions. Jacqui is kind of giving me a little bit of insight, and I've gone nuts. But can you guys tell us what those initial questions look like, or can you show us your intake form?
Yeah, can I share my screen? Would that be a good way to do it?
I think that would be perfect.
Let me see, let me try. I think I can. Okay, you all are seeing my mess. Okay, so this is the link that Jacqui shared in the chat. It's a link tree, and it kind of just gives you a set of options. So I think if you're like not exactly sure where to start, this is the best place to start. It's also, like I said, bilingual, and so it's something that you could send to other people very easily. We have flyers and things that are going out in the neighborhood, and they basically have this link as well as the hotline number. And so, you know, again, the hotline number is also another really good thing to share. And I actually don't have it off the top of my head, but Jacqui, if you put that in the chat, that would be great.
I got you.
So there's these different options here. This offer, request mutual aid. This is that intake form that Erica was referencing. This is kind of the basis for our entire system. And so it's really simple. I think it really just doesn't take too long to go through, and that's intentional. Like, we don't want to overwhelm people with like, we don't want everything. We don't want your social security number and your address and like all that stuff. Like, we just really need to know the kind of core basics of who you are and what you're needing or what you're offering. And then we focus on following up with you to get a much clearer understanding of like what exactly you need. So this is meant to be pretty basic, and we're adding more translations as well. We have the Spanish, we're doing Bosnian, and we're going to be getting Vietnamese up soon too. So yeah, so it's really just, you know, contact information. We really want to know how you want us to contact you, so that we're not like calling you if you don't answer phone calls and stuff like that. We want to know if you currently are expressing any symptoms to any of these other, you know, are you immunocompromised? Are you a caregiver over 65? Other things that apply to you. Neighborhood, this is really important because it helps us plug you into whatever neighborhood pod or network is currently in existence. We want to know, like, if you've already started organizing. You know, we're not making the assumption that people haven't already been doing some of this stuff, and we're not trying to, like I said, we're not trying to control or sort of take credit for anything anyone else is doing. What we are trying to do is just kind of create a useful system for everybody to be on the same page and to not duplicate each other's work. So this is really important, you know, for I think many of you who are probably active in your neighborhood in other ways, or community leaders in your own right. We really want to know like what you've already been doing, and like, is there a way that the things that we have set up can be beneficial to you? And then it's just, what kind of support do you need? Transportation, food, specific supplies, prepared food, emotional support, educational resources, childcare, navigating the healthcare system, financial, and then the same things here. What are you able to provide? And then really just whatever you want to share. And so, like I said, this is just a very overview kind of look that gives us a little snapshot of sort of what you're looking for. And then we make sure to kind of direct the requests in the right ways, whether it's by, you know, somebody who lives in that area or somebody who specializes in whatever thing that you're asking for, and connect you from there. And then these other options are related to, so these two options are both related to financial solidarity, which is the sort of money aspect of all of this. And so this sheet right here is a pretty overwhelming spreadsheet. And I think, you know, in some ways that's a little bit of a good thing, because it's like, I know people who give on this thing and they're like, oh my God, it's so overwhelming. I'm like, yeah, like people's stories and what they're sharing is like really overwhelming right now. And sometimes it's actually good to kind of get perspective by looking at the things that people are sharing here about what their current situation is, and yeah, like what they're going through. So this was an initial system that we set up that's just like a spreadsheet where anybody, anyone can give to anyone else without having to pass money through us at all. So people post their Venmos or their Cash Apps or whatever on here, and then anybody can just go on and see like, oh, that person hasn't met their minimum yet, or I would like to be able to give, you know, whatever amount you're able to give to them, and you just do it directly without having to go through us. So that's something that we've set up, and we're going to continue to update this as well, because we are almost meeting our minimum need, which is amazing. And then this option is just a kind of general option. If you're like, well, I want to give, I want to support financially, but don't necessarily understand all of this, or maybe I don't have Cash Apps, or maybe you want to give to people specifically who are unbanked, which is also like a much thing that's coming up too, is people who are keeping their information anonymous from this spreadsheet, and also people who don't have bank accounts. And so if you want to give to folks in that way, or just want to do it in sort of a more collective manner, then you would give through, you would give through the fund. So, oh, sorry, my stuff is lost into the back of this. So yeah, so then it'll direct you to this link right here, which is basically, oh no. You see all this stuff here. Okay, well, you can see this is how much we've raised so far, which is great. So this money is money that will go out directly. Oh my gosh, why can I not get onto the public facing side of this? So all of this money will go directly to the same folks who are submitting requests. And so we're just having a system, basically kind of like a first come first serve type of thing. So this is an option for people who want to give one-time amount, or even we've encouraged people to start giving weekly or monthly, especially people who have like stable income right now and can sort of a way to take take the thinking out of it and make it a little bit easier for folks to be giving on a regular basis, and because we know this is going to last for a while. So yeah, those are the immediate things. And the last link on here is just the Spanish resources, which again, we're working to kind of consolidate and clean up. And I mean, all of these systems are evolving. And so like, that's another reason why some of them are a little bit messy sometimes, is because we'll develop something and then we'll figure out how to improve it. And then we'll have to go back and like change how we share it with people. And like,
Yeah.
It's all very much happening in real time. So we're trying to kind of streamline everything, make it simpler. But as you get plugged in, and of course, and the most important thing is like, if you want to get involved, to fill out that first form of just the general offer, request mutual aid, because that really allows us to direct you into the right places. But yeah, like, it's very likely that a week from now, a lot of this stuff will like look different, because we're like continuously adapting and improving like all of our different intake systems.
It's been really cool to see the processes evolve, and the skills of the collective kind of be pulled in to modify and improve our processes. And it's really cool that that's something you're consistently looking at, right? How can this week's process be smoother and better the following week? So awesome. Really quickly, before we get off of here, I want to share my screen. I've pulled up the flyers for mutual aid And so I can email these out. It's not allowing me to post the flyers in the chat, but I can email these out to folks and send them just so you have access. But I'd encourage you maybe now, if you want the number more immediately, to screenshot or take a picture of this, just so you have it on hand. And then, like I said, I'll send the flyers out. If we're friends on social media, which I think I am with just about everybody on this call, you can check it out there as well. But this is the English version and this is the Spanish version. And as Julia said, this is a way for folks. And I really like the hotline because digital access is a barrier right now. And a lot of resources are being funneled through the internet. And so this is a way for folks who have access to phone lines, but not necessarily the internet, to reach out and get assistance with filling out these forms. So with that being said, I would really like to thank my friends. Thank you all so much for being here today. I'm consistently inspired by your hearts and minds to give. And yeah, this has just been an amazing movement to be a part of. And so, yeah, I hope everyone who attended today, thank you first of all for attending. I hope you learned more about what mutual aid, specifically as it relates to the work being done in the St. Louis region, is all about. Lastly, before we log off, Julia and Erica, would you all like to offer any contact information? Julia, I know you just walked us through the mutual aid forms and things of that nature, but are there any other forms of contact that you all would like to provide for our attendees today?
Oh, yeah, you can always go to aredcircle.org to reach me, but I'll also put my email address in the chat.
Awesome, awesome. All right, family. Well, we are ending only 2 minutes past the 11 o'clock hour.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you for having us.
Thank you all.
I wasn't really sure what to expect, but I just like to share what we do, and unlike you, so I was like, okay.
Yay! All right, loves. Well, we will be connecting soon, and I will talk to you all a little later. Take care, and thank you all,
All right,
for joining.
take care, everyone. Stay healthy.
All right, you too. Bye.